Our opening words today are from Marianne Williamson. Ego says, once everything falls into place, I'll feel peace. Spirit says, find your peace, and then everything will fall into place. Blessed is the fire that burns deep in the soul. It is the flame of the human spirit touched into being by the mystery of life. It is the fire of reason, the fire of compassion, the fire of community, the fire of justice, and the fire of faith. It is the fire of love burning deep in the human heart, the divine glow in every light. Please now join me in reciting our covenant as is printed in your order of service. Love is the doctrine of the church. The quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth in love, and to help one another to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony with the divine. We're now going to do a little guided meditation. So please get comfortable, and if you're open to it, please close your eyes. Take a couple of deep breaths and allow yourself to get settled, however that feels. I want you to imagine that there is a magnetic tube that is connected at one end to the center of the earth, and the other end is connected to the base of your spine. Our planet has a magnetic field that creates gravitational pull, holding us to the ground. Imagine that gravitational force is holding you to the earth, grounding you, and connecting you to the earth's energy. I now want you to envision that a burst of energy is coming up from the center of the earth through that tube and traveling into your body. This energy from the earth's core has the consistency and colors of a flame: reds, oranges, yellows, and blues. It is warm, with just the right amount of heat. As it enters your body, it dances throughout your body, touching every cell, and burning up any energy that is not serving you. Negative and heavy energy in the form of thoughts, emotions, physical pain, or any other form are scooped up by this cleansing flame. The flame continues to dance through you and around you, picking up any bits of energy that might be hiding. And once it has picked up the last bits of negative energy, that flame returns to the tube, back to the center of the earth, and it is reintegrated into the core of the earth to be reused later. You can now allow that tube to retract away from your spine and back to the center of the earth. Please know that you can always reattach it anytime you want the earth's assistance in feeling grounded or releasing negative energy. I now want you to envision that there is a beam of white, iridescent light coming from the sky and connecting to you at the top of your head. You feel your crown open up and allow the energy to come into your body. The energy coming through this beam of light is pure, unconditional, unfiltered love. It has a liquidy consistency to it, like liquid mercury, and it may appear to you as a pure white color or as a sort of iridescent shimmering color. It may feel cool, but not cold, just refreshing and energizing. It is the most positive energy that you have ever experienced in your body, and it is dripping through your body, filling you from the top of your head all the way to your toes. It is filling in the gaps
from one of the books that has influenced her spiritual understanding. This is from Dying to Be Me, in which the author, Anita Morjani, shares her experience as a dying cancer patient who was cured following a vivid near-death experience. I continued to sense myself expanding further and further outward, drawing away from my physical surroundings. It was as though I were no longer restricted by the confines of space and time, and continued to spread myself out to occupy a greater expanse of consciousness. I felt a sense of freedom and liberation that I never experienced in my physical life before. I can only describe this as a combination of a sense of joy mixed with a generous sprinkling of jubilation and happiness. It didn't feel as though I'd physically gone somewhere else. It was more as though I had awakened. My soul was finally realizing its true magnificence, and in so doing, it was expanding beyond my body in this physical world. It extended further and further outward until it encompassed not only this existence, but continued to expand into another realm that was beyond this time and space, and that at the same time included it. Love, joy, ecstasy, and awe poured into me, through me, and engulfed me. I was swallowed up and enveloped in more love than I ever knew existed. I felt more free and alive than I ever had. The overwhelming sensations were in a realm of their own, and words don't exist to describe them. The feeling of complete, pure, unconditional love was unlike anything I had ever known before. Unqualified and non-judgmental. It was totally indiscriminating, as if I didn't have to do anything to deserve it, nor did I need to prove myself to earn it. The universe makes sense, I realized. I saw my life intricately woven into everything I've known so far. My experience was like a single thread woven through the huge and complexly colorful images of an infinite tapestry. All the other threads and colors represented my relationships, including every life I touched. Every single encounter was woven together to create the fabric that was the sum of my life up to this point. I may have been only one thread, yet I was integral to the overall finished picture. Seeing this, I understood that I owed it to myself and to everyone I met and to life itself to always be an expression of my own unique essence. Why do I suddenly understand all of this? I wanted to know. Who's giving me this information? Is it God, Krishna, Buddha, Jesus? And then I was overwhelmed by the realization that God isn't a being, but a state of being. And I was now that state of being.
I grew up attending a new church very similar to this one in Lexington, Massachusetts. And Alan Armstrong was actually a member of that church also. Like many GQs, I ended up in that church because of the confines of religion. My mother grew up attending a beautiful and supportive Presbyterian church in Buffalo. Her mother, my grandmother, had been raised Southern Baptist and had a deep and graceful faith that was very comforting to her. grew up in a strict, dramatic, and forceful Southern Methodist church in Arkansas, which, as many of you here recovering from dogmatic religions can relate, it was not quite his cup of tea. And so, my mother, wanting us to have some form of religious influence, had to find a community that my father would at least tolerate. They found that and more at First Parish in Lexington. I grew up with a wonderful minister and a great community of adults and children, taking part in Sunday school, coming of age, youth group, about your sexuality, which is what we now call OWL, participating in plays in the Christmas pageant, and so much more. I am so grateful for my upbringing in that community. It contributed to shaping me as an individual. It gave me perspective and taught me about humanity and life. But it did not necessarily shape me spiritually. It did not teach me what to believe or even what I could believe. And it didn't address any of the big spiritual questions. Like, does God exist? What's the deal with Jesus? What are we doing here? And what really matters? As I got older, and especially in high school and college, I really started questioning this. Why were we having a Christmas pageant when we didn't talk about Jesus? I questioned my mom many times about why we were saying a blessing at dinner every night that mentioned Jesus, and we never talked about it. Were we even a religion or a faith when we didn't address any of this stuff? And why didn't we address it? Why didn't we ever talk about God? We, as youth, believe in welcoming and accepting everyone. In fact, my dad sometimes refers to Unitarian Universalism as the church of anything goes. It's pretty true. I think it's wonderful that different people with different backgrounds and different beliefs can come together as a community to support each other and the larger community. But as a religion, I feel that we are leaving a lot to be desired when it comes to spiritual support. This was actually a large consideration for me in joining this church. I knew that it was a community I really resonated with, and I agreed with the values and the mission. But I was hesitant because I wasn't sure that it would fulfill my needs spiritually. About spirituality and faith, the UU primer states, quote, "We believe in the freedom of religious expression. All individuals should be encouraged to develop their own personal theologies," end quote. And so, we're left to figure it out on our own. Now this, in my opinion, is both good and bad. The bad? We're not given much guidance or exposed to much that can help us develop our own spirituality. And so, I feel that many youths don't actually access or consider spirituality as much as they could. And that is particularly true for kids growing up in the UU church. But the good news is that we're not told what to believe by someone else, so we don't have to unlearn before we learn. And we can build our beliefs built on our own experiences and explorations in life. So, for better or worse, that's how my spirituality has been shaped, through life experience. From a very young age, my life revolved around striving and achieving. I was very focused on excelling academically, athletically, and socially. And as I moved through life, this trend continued. After college, I wanted to be the best at my job, the best girlfriend, the best friend, etc. I expected myself really to be the best at everything, and I was doing okay. I had a cool and important job in a hit marketing agency. I moved up the ladder pretty quickly, was respected and valued by my clients and team members. I was living in Boulder, Colorado, which was pretty cool, had lots of friends, and I was in a relationship. By all standards, I was successful. From the outside, it all looked great, but on the inside, I was struggling. I had a very active internal monologue, and I was constantly analyzing what others thought of me, the mistakes I was making, and how I could be and do better. I was paralyzed by the belief that I wasn't good enough. I was exhausted and anxious, and I felt oddly alone given how many people surrounded me. Over the years, the discomfort grew and grew. I would try to change my situation thinking that would help, but it didn't. No matter what I did, I couldn't fix it. And eventually, 6 years ago, it got really bad. I was exhausted, unhappy, anxious, and depressed. This, of course, is where my spiritual journey really began, as it does for so many people when things get really bad. I find that it is often in the darkness that we are able to find the light. First came the signs. There were occurrences in my life that I could have seen as coincidences, but after reading The Celestine Prophecy by James Redfield, I had started to consider that there was no such thing as a coincidence. These occurrences were accompanied by a little voice inside me that was exponentially softer than the one I was so used to hearing in my head, but it was there, and it was talking to me in a really different way. This was my intuition, and it was telling me to stop what I was doing. It was telling me that something was not right, and I needed to slow down and take time for myself and change direction. It was telling me to surrender control and just be. I vacillated a lot between listening to my newly discovered intuition, trusting that I could let go and surrender control, and completely freaking out when I was listening to that very loud voice in my head that was telling me I was crazy. That I should have just been happy with this quote-unquote successful life I had built, and that something was wrong with me, that I couldn't be happy with it, that I wasn't good enough. But somehow, I just knew that my intuition was telling me more, that what it was saying was true, and it somehow mattered more. Despite being a softer voice, it's what I needed to follow. So I quit my job, I let go of the plan, and I surrendered. This was step one in my journey, paying attention to what was coming up for me and what was coming up within me, and surrendering. The next step came in asking for support. I wouldn't have called it this at the time, but I basically started praying. I started writing down notes and saying things internally about what I felt I needed. And at the time, what I needed was time. And amazingly, time showed up. The more time I had, the more time I realized I needed, and the more it kept showing up. And so I began to slowly trust that I was somehow being taken care of. I started trusting that whatever I was meant to experience or learn was going to show up. And so opportunities started showing up. They were not at all what I expected, and they showed up in the most unexpected ways, but they were exactly what I needed. One of those was my path crossing with Martha Beck. In yet another very strange twist of circumstances, I somehow ended up in a workshop she was presenting. I had no clue who she was, and I didn't actually plan on staying. But within what seemed to be minutes, I was crying tears of relief. This woman standing before me was explaining